Hi, I'm Joe Salzone, and welcome to our show here on ARMA. I'm here with Scott and Michelle, the owners of Next Chapter Brew Pub, right in downtown Auburn. Guys, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe, for having us. Appreciate it.
You guys have been in business for a couple of years, but 2020 has not exactly been a business as usual year.
That is correct. Been a lot of challenges with the year. Certainly, our plan for the year is not going to unfold the way we expected it, but there are other things that happened. So,
take us back, Scott, January of 2020, before quarantine and lockdown and all of our lives changed.
Yeah.
What was your plan for Next Chapter in 2020?
Well, besides expanding our food menu and bringing in different bands and so forth for music, we had plans for going into a lot of distribution of our beer out to local places in town and around town, but that all changed. Lack of need.
Michelle, March 2020, you got the word of lockdown. What was your immediate reaction?
What are we going to do? We put our heads together, we thought about it, and we said, you know what, we're not going to close because we're not quitters, and we're just going to do takeout, we're going to try delivery, we're going to do curbside, we were going to do everything that we did to keep rolling.
Having those options, did it save you?
To date, I think it has. Yeah. To expand on those things. None of that was in place at the point in March. We had, 1% of our business was out the door, right? All of it was on premise. And, people enjoy coming here, sitting on these very couches and having a beer, listening to music, having food. So we had to develop things that would enable us to do an off-premise model. So canning facility, being able to can more efficiently, doing takeout food, packaging for takeout, online ordering, phone ordering, all those systems were not in place. So all had to be invented and put together for us. So it was work to get there, but it certainly did save us. The option was not there to close, certainly for us.
It wasn't anything that anyone could have planned on. How quickly did you two put together a plan to get at least through the lockdown?
Yeah.
Quickly.
Yeah.
It was within a day.
There was immediate things we could do, but no capability for online ordering or even phone ordering initially was possible. So I would say within 2 weeks, and fortunately the company that we work with for our order taking, they knew the need was coming quick for the country. They've got 100 clients across the country, and they knew that was something they'd have to deal with. So they actually changed their schedule and produced something more elaborate within a month's time. But before that, they gave us something that was workable. So it was a couple weeks max.
And then earlier in the summer, some of the restrictions began to lift, and you were able to welcome back people to dine in, but there were still restrictions in place. How did you navigate through those regulations, which seem to change day to day?
Yeah.
We never knew what was going to happen the next day. Because as you said, every day there was something new coming up. And then we had to talk about it and say, what are we supposed to do now? But we worked through it.
Yeah, and fortunately, the state actually provided quite a template for what restaurants and bars had to do in order to open and stay open. For example, we have a daily health check for all our employees. They gave us a template on what those things had to be. So that was important to do. Cleaning regimen, setting up tables, spacing, all that stuff, with 50% in the building. And on top of that, what was really fortunate for us, and the city of Auburn helped with it a lot, was to allow us to use more space outside. The governor had allowed, beyond the normal size cafe, it allowed us to expand that size and expand our liquor license to go with it, which is important, of course. So that provided a much bigger space for outside, which is what people wanted to have. And on top of all that, navigating that was really easy because the weather was excellent for the most part.
And then I imagine having to explain the regulations, the ever-changing regulations to your employees, who would then have to explain it to customers, kind of a chain reaction.
Making sure that they knew what was important to keep them safe, both for them as well as to our customers as well. most of it, obviously, we explain through email and talks and quickly. But we got some sharp people, so they understood it. Most of them understood it quickly, and they're at a point where they're quite resilient to things like this. So they can understand what was going on.
What do customers need to know about what they need to bring and how they need to behave when they walk in here?
Every time somebody comes in, we go through the list, the hostess does. It's a little stressful because, you get remarks after you say that you have to wear a mask. Well, the biggest thing is, well, we're outside. Why do I have to wear a mask outside? There can't be any parties larger than 10, but most of the time, if it's any parties larger than 4 or 5 for us, a reservation is great because we do have all our tables 6 feet apart. They don't understand that they have to have food with alcohol. And also, if they get up to go to the bathroom, you have to have your mask on. When you come back, sit down, take it off, breathe, enjoy the people that you're with. But if you see somebody they still can't get that they can't go over and talk to them.
Yeah.
Because it's just crazy.
And it puts the staff in a tough position because no one wants to be the bad cop, but there are some very important consequences that could come down.
Yeah, absolutely.
If a health inspector comes by and sees that these regulations aren't being followed.
That's correct. And for us, even more importantly, is the liquor authority. If they happen to come by, because they do have been doing that, they've been going across the state looking at different restaurants and so forth. You don't want their attention. That's the last thing you need. So for them to come in and see a violation, that would be a bad thing, definitely.
Now, anyone who's gone to a bar or a restaurant has heard the speech about what they can and cannot do. How do you find out about the new regulations? Does someone call you? Do they come by? Do they hand deliver the news?
We belong to the Brewers Association. That's been the most successful resource for us to find out these things. They're very in tune with the liquor authority, so they hear from them directly on a daily basis any changes. So we get email from them or whatever it might be, and that's where we get most of it. But the governor's been good in publishing a lot of this stuff too. So you'd have to really be shutting your doors and not listening to things going on to miss a lot of the stuff that's happened. So.
What do you say to people who will refuse to follow those guidelines?
No service, unfortunately. It's the mask, the sitting down, not visiting people and so forth. All things that we could lose our license for. So to us, a single drink, a single customer means nothing if we lose our license. So unfortunately, they get to leave.
Here in downtown, there are any number of places where a person can go and have a drink or two or dinner. Tell me about the relationship that exists within the brewery community here in Auburn. Do you talk to each other? Do you share questions and concerns that everyone has?
There's probably been less of that than you imagine. We're all so busy. We're focused on our little requirements and so forth. But there has been some nice things that have come about. We at one point during, I want to say probably April, March, or May timeframe, we ran out of cans. And we asked around the different breweries in town and so forth, because I couldn't get them quickly. Asked Dawn and Mark from Prison City if they had any extra cans, and they checked their basement or whatever and found some. And that got us through a couple of days, which was great. So that kind of thing was, something we feel free. We could ask them, and they'd ask us the same thing. So that kind of helped out.
Anyone who walks by, whether it's midday or early in the day, they'll likely see one or both of you working and getting stuff ready for the week. How has all of the restrictions and COVID-19, how has it affected your schedule or your routine?
I don't brew as much as I used to, so I have less of that going on. But there's other things to do. I mentioned cleaning. I mentioned the fact that we had to set up the patio and making sure that's all good. And so there's been other things to do, but certainly not as much brewing for me. So when I'm not flipping pizza, I don't actually flip pizza, but when I'm not cooking pizza, I would normally be brewing activities, whether it's cleaning kegs or brewing itself. Don't have as much of that to do right now because we don't have as much retail sale, but there's plenty of other things to do. Keep us busy.
Well, and also during the COVID-19 and opening up again, we had to hire more staff. We try to keep it a lean staff, but we had to hire more staff. We had to hire more hostesses because we needed that person to be the police.
Let's talk about the staff. These are college age, I hate to say it, but kids
Yep.
who are now thrust in this weird position of power. How are they handling it?
They're really, really good.
Yep.
Anybody that walks through our door and writes out an application, and then we have the interview, and then they're hired. They would tell you they feel like family. And Scott and I really want every member that's part of our team to feel like family, to feel ownership of what you're doing. And I think we've got that on our staff at the moment.
Yeah, they all understand the importance of what they're doing with the job they have. They're like the front door, if you will. They're the caretakers, and they understand how important that is. So they take it serious. And of course, we've only had to correct a few times if they don't see something happening, because people forget and stuff happens on the floor, whether it's in the patio or whether they're in the restaurant, and people get up and walk without their mask on or go visit somebody. So they've been good about going over there and tapping on the shoulder and saying, sorry, you can't do that. So they've been really good about that.
The other thing that's really the next thing that has gotten to us for COVID-19 is the live music. We started out, advertising live music. We followed all the rules. The place would be packed.
Yeah.
Within the limit that we had to have inside and outside and 6 feet apart. And then all of a sudden, you wake up another morning, no advertisements for live music.
Right.
And that's one thing right now that's very hard. It's hard on our staff too, because they loved working and listening to the live music. Scott and I personally, we can't advertise it. We can't advertise music when we have it, through the company also. Yeah. And we're afraid now that we don't want our employees advertising it either, because they're part of Next Chapter. So it's the hardest thing. And it's like, okay, so how are we going to get people to come in, enjoy themselves, and enjoy the music, but they don't know that we're having music. Yeah. So, they just stop by, and I guess they have their guitars and drums.
Well, fortunately, the musicians can actually advertise. The liquor authority has no jurisdiction over the musicians. So those who know how to do that and have a network, if you will, their own, they can advertise and be effective at getting people in the door, which is good. So it's good for both of us. We pay our musicians based on how well business is. So it's good for them as well, obviously, if they have more people in the door. And employees are disappointed too, because they get paid based on where our customer base is, right? So, and with tips and so forth. So, it's really has been an impact, both the food requirement and the music advertising requirement.
If Governor Cuomo were sitting here across from you and not me, what would you want him to know about what you guys have experienced the last few months?
Well, I think it's those things we just talked about. What's hurting the most? We want them to know that we were doing a good job from June until the end of August or mid-August with music. We had 0 violations. We had no issues to speak of. We had good crowds. We were collecting, revenue, if you will. And all of a sudden, this rule came about that restricted that entirely. And it would be nice if there was some kind of a test that would say, hey, you can't do this because you're failing at it, and versus everybody gets the same thing. It would be nice to have the ability to do music, advertise like we were. We were not a gathering place because of liquor. It was because people wanted to come here and enjoy the community of listening to live music. So it wasn't an issue that we have in New York City that everybody's experiencing there. But so that, for me, that would be number one thing I talked to them about, is why is everybody has to get covered by the same rule when in fact everything was fine. So.
And it's hurting the industry.
Yeah, musicians, yeah.
Some of them, yes, it could be a part-time gig, but some of them, it's their livelihood. You know, just like Scott and I, here is our livelihood. And it's just, it's probably, and also, we're not sleeping.
Yeah.
We get up
So
in
we
the middle of the night.
We give them an earful, Joe. I'm sure we would.
Yeah, I think so. In the beginning, it was great, you know, saving everybody so they don't have it. But now it's just killing all the small businesses around here. It's just, our regulars aren't even coming in. It took a while for people to come inside, even though they knew how clean our place was. I don't know about it.
We
sad.
see, no real official numbers, but we see about 25% of our regulars these days. Most just don't go out, aren't doing it. You know, either it's because they don't want to eat with their drink. You know, they're going to eat someplace else. They don't know we have music, so they're not coming because of that, or they're just afraid. You know, that's all sorts of reasons.
There has, though, been a lot of good progress since the height of the pandemic months ago.
Yeah.
Is there light at the end of the tunnel? If you think a year from now, 2 years from now, even 6 months from now, or do you see this lasting a while longer?
Well, there's one or two answers I want to give you, Joe. One is the election, right? Might be an impact. Two, I think more obvious is a vaccine. So once we actually have an available vaccine that people can count on, like our own brother and sister-in-law, my brother and sister-in-law.
I know what you meant.
George and Mary, they won't come out to a place yet, although they'd love to, right? And they would be regulars, but they won't touch it until there's a vaccine. So there's a lot of people in that camp, right? So that, wherever that's at, whether that's first year or spring, wherever that's going to be, you know, but I'm afraid of what, you know, we talked about COVID-19, just like the flu, that's an annual event, right? There's going to be a COVID-20, and are we prepared as a society to handle that, you know, both from a healthcare perspective as well as what we do inside here and so forth. So I think there is light, though, and that's the vaccine for me.
What have you two learned about owning a business? Because you guys were around a couple years before COVID. You'll be around after COVID. What have you learned about operating a business? What have you learned about yourselves and just being managers over the last several months?
I'll just start.
You can start.
Okay, so certainly the biggest challenge is actually being able to you know, take it all in and not get totally frustrated, right? Just go with the punches, you know, be able to have the ability to absorb and think through problems like this. You know, it would have been easy to shut our doors and, you know, take the unemployment route or, you know, take all the government loans we could get and just ride out the storm. But, you know, that's not part of our MO. I would not take that route to start with. But so I think it's the ability to grab that and manage through it. You know, I think you establish thick skin and thought processes that help us do that. You know, creativity as well. You know, we did some things that never thought I would be doing. We ended up getting a wine slushy machine. You know, a beer guy, right? I'm not a wine guy. Having that machine has been great. It's more than paid for itself. We've seen a lot of new customers that would never come to the door because they're not beer drinkers. They're wine drinkers or wine slushy drinkers. We had great weather for the summer, so that helped a lot. It was a slushy machine.
And we did beer slushies too.
Yeah, and we experimented with that a little bit. We've done beer and non-alcoholic slushies that also attract different customers, and so it spirits some creativity in us as well. You know, things that, you know, if this didn't happen, I never would have done that. Never would have thought to do that. Never would have decided that was the right thing to do. Would have been on our own path, if you will. So that's one. And of course, the canning of beer and so forth has been, you know, a necessity. And we've been working with labelers to try to get, you know, kind of cool looking labels and things like that to make sure our beer looks presentable. Again, never would have expected to have to do all that, but you know, now it's kind of the standard thing. Everything goes in beer cans nowadays. So that, you know, as far as distribution goes, so it's those things that we thought through as part of the necessity right? Versus, nice to have, right? So it's kind of that mindset.
You got to stick together.
Yeah, too, man.
There's you turn on the news, there's a lot of negativity out there, social media, all of it. Tell me something good that's come out of this year.
I got one.
Personally?
Hey,
Personally, professionally?
Okay, I'm going to say personally, it would be our second granddaughter.
Well, to that note, we actually, another thing that
We did.
creativity, we never thought we'd be doing this, hard seltzer. We chose to make that because it's still quite popular. It's growing more than beer these days. So we actually decided to figure out how to make seltzer. Our license supports it, so we were able to do it, which is good. And made that. Matter of fact, we named our seltzers after our first two granddaughters. So we have two seltzers that were named after them. So to tie in the family connection, but that again, something that was good because it's not only is it something that we have and we know we can do now, it's also something that shows our breadth of products that we can offer. So it's very good.
To the people watching this, what do you want them to know?
Well, I think just like we sat here a while back in another interview that we did a while back, we want people to come downtown Auburn, come in the Next Chapter, enjoy a pizza, enjoy a beer or a seltzer now, or wine slush. Got lots of stuff to choose from, and listen to live music. Nothing there has changed. We allow fewer people in the building now, of course, given the rules of the event, the quarantine, if you will. But all those things are there. So we want people to do that.
Totally correct.
There you go.
Well, Scott, Michelle, thank you very much for your time.
Joe, thank you for your
Joe.
time.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
From Next Chapter Brew Pub, I'm Joe Salzone for ARMA.